intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. I hope y'all had a wonderful one. I had a blast. In fact, wanted to show you one of the things my wife got me. I got this really cool three-dimensional chess set many of you would recognize from Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I'm like really excited about that. Hopefully you had a great one as well. And I want to continue the series that we have started, well, actually I think started before this year, but new player guides. Really talk about what affects players today, what you should go after, and why is that important? Well, believe it or not, this game still has a lot of people joining every day. In fact, we can show you some numbers. How about some numbers? You want numbers? Bam, look at that. STFC statistics, about 2,000 accounts, whether it be returning players, players making alts, new players every day. And a lot of that is because, well, the game will pay streamers to show to their communities and get them to join. But regardless, there's a lot of new players out in the game today, and it's important for us to go over what's important. So today we're going to cover some of the early special ships, whether you should skip them, whether they have value today or not, and whether I, in fact, am using them, because you can see at level 25, I'm currently mining an envoy or mining with an envoy. Does that mean that the meridian no longer has value? It's not what it means, but I do want to kind of go over what we are looking at in terms of what does have the value for most players. So as we talk about our shipyard, you can see everybody's going to get inundated with the old ones, but what about the Dvor? What about the Discovery, the Meridian, the Vidar? This big chunk of specialty ships early on, are these worth going after? And it's a perfectly legitimate question. If you're new to the game, you're going, well, the game tells me this, but do I need a Franklin? Well, the Franklin's used for hunting swarms, particularly on Swarm Sunday. But the truth is, this is a ship that a lot of us no longer build. In fact, I don't even have one on a newer account. That's just how it is. To top it all off, it's the same with the Dvor. I've not picked one up yet. However, when I do my mining Monday, as you can see behind me, I'm slowly acquiring Dvor blueprints. That's something they updated with the Mining Monday events that will pay out Dvor blueprints. If you are of the appropriate level in the lower 20s, you can start earning those, but I don't have one of those either. Did pick up this, but I picked up this through an event store instead of, targeting it through Cosmic Cleanup. I picked this up through an event store. So the order of operations and priority may have changed a little bit for players. Let me talk about what I find valuable now when I go after things. So number one, the most important special ship you can get today is actually based on a brand new building called the Independent Archives. And this is going to be a big theme of today's video. So if you're watching this at a later date, appreciate you being a new player and being in this game. I'm glad that you're here. Also, feel free to chime in down below when you watched and what ship you're going after. But this is going to be big because we know in 2025 they're adding more to this. So for now, this video is going to tell you to probably skip some things, but at the same time, you are probably going to want to go back to it because up until a couple months ago, the Botany Bay was a complete skip of a ship. It had no real purpose left in the game. Sure, it was part of the early augment content, but that didn't really do much for players beyond, mining green data allows you to get more of the, launches for your Stella, which again was another piece of content that had become really dated. So you had gotten to the point where things in the refinery were just getting skipped over, and even things in the faction store were no longer being used. And again, to the point I'm making, the augment store had for the most part become a dead store. Nobody had really touched it. New players were not investing in it, and that was understandable as to why. And now you're starting to see a slight change to that, where yes, I talked about the, great method of using this to eventually farm the transporter patterns, but even that has kind of fallen to the wayside with the up and comings of newer and more important loops. But thanks to the Independent Archive, the Botany Bay is absolutely worth acquiring. In fact, the Botany Bay is something that I now use every day right here. Don't know why I showed a non-Botany Bay, but here she is mining a crystal node. Yep, getting my dailies done with my Botany Bay while I work on leveling it up, as well as mining the data with it. So yes, the Botany Bay is very important because of the Independent Archive, giving it more relevance and value. Now, some ships have maintained their value regardless, and that is another example of one of those ships right here with the Vidar. Whether you are, from 2019 or 2024, the Vidar is and will probably always be one of the best ships in this game. Why? Well, for several reasons. Number one, it doesn't have a level lock. So you can actually max it out in the 20s if you chose. Not saying that's something you should do, but at level 25, acquiring this, via a combination of Cosmic Cleanup and event stores that pop up is super valuable. It's a very combative ship. It's going to be one of your best combat ships in the game. Great for OPC hunting, but also great for just general use. Combining that with what you can see in the background, which are abilities that with the Independent Archive makes it easier and quicker to upgrade. With me having already in this first month gotten mine to tier 3 and working on tier 4, and I just achieved it through this current event store during the Christmas holiday season. So that still has value, and now might have more value as it's more reasonable to start working on unlocking it. Now, we do have a lot of ways to acquire ships these days. In fact, my alliance here on server 710, well, we just activated our territory where you can now get meridian BPs. One of the reasons I'm mining right now, so I can slowly start working on this. I'm 25 away. But with the meridian, this is indeed something you should go after. The basic, what I'm trying to get to all of you, is what provides immediate value and long-term value. The meridian provides great long-term value because of the research tree that's attached to it, and that would be the territory tree. But the territory tree doesn't really take off until level 30 and above. Yet you still kind of want to start working on it early, as I have started doing here. And to do that, you need to acquire the meridian for the most part, though, as you can see, I'm currently mining with envoys, trying to work on getting those amounts. But because of territory, I'm already collecting, quantum particles, Surex particles, things I'm going to need for this territory research tree. The Franklin and the Dvor are both things that have kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit, but I do really want to add that if you're a player starting today, sure, they're not worth really focusing on, but that doesn't mean you should not, passively work on obtaining them. For example, a great passive way of obtaining your Dvor is through your 30-day chest. If you're doing your dailies every day, you're getting a token to turn in. So every 7 days, you can get 10 blueprints just from this, not including what you get from simply doing Mining Monday, which again is going to have, in my opinion, very, very high value because you can acquire it and we know it's going to get added into the Independent Archive. Veteran players have already discovered the value of the IA building, and new players, it's important to know this is in your future, but not necessarily something that you want to devote a lot of time into right now. The biggest problem with the Dvor, though, is the upgrade process. It takes a long time to upgrade the Dvor. It is painful. So painful. Right there. The biggest issue are the parts. The Dvor parts will take forever to do, and you're going to need the refinery to do that. So working on that process quickly is going to be helpful. But one of the things that we know is going to happen with the IA building is it makes that process more obtainable. It makes the process shorter by making it more efficient. That is something that all of the IA things have in common. So, little quick recap. If you maybe have trouble keeping up, I get it. New game, full of stuff. Botany Bay, absolutely worth picking up, what you're going to do in the upper teens in the game. Discovery is great to pick up through event stores and through cosmic cleanup. It is an early focus, but not necessarily a long-term focus. It also has a long upgrade path, just like the Dvor. The Dvor is going to be next on your list, and yeah, it's also something to go after, but more passively, whereas the Franklin, who I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, is at this moment a complete skip. There really is no point in going after it, because even with the upgrades, even with all these, it just doesn't provide much in the game. You're doing all this loop to then get a very, very paltry amount of resources. And why is that irrelevant in today's game? Well, even in what you can see behind you, you're getting more from a 30-day chest than you are from the event anyway. But let's just go and talk about what events pay out to players in the modern day of economies with this game, having changed so much. Well, you have all these different events that are here, but let's just look at the amount of Synced XP that gets paid out per event. These are things that never used to happen. Let's talk about resources though. That's the bread and butter of what the Franklin provides, is actual resources in the game. And through all these events, you can find a lot of different things. But let's just pop into Crucible of War. Slightly older, you could call it to an extent, but between these, you go into your Alliance store. What are we going to find with Crucible of War? You're going to find immediate redeems for things like platinum, for things like titanium, dilithium, and you're going to be getting it in far greater amounts than you would be grabbing from a Franklin refinery. It just doesn't pay a lot. That doesn't mean that the Franklin isn't something that you could look at getting long-term, because again, as you're balancing all these events to do, making up your mind what actually has value, because again, seeing something like this, where at this level, I'm getting 100 million parts at my top level, I don't really need the Franklin to help out with that, but to get the Franklin 8 level 35, you need to have maxed out your Franklin. And this is where the IA building is going to come into play. If you're an early player, the main thing you're focusing on for specialty ships is the Botany Bay, the Discovery, and the Vidar. Then you're working on Meridian and Stella. Couple things that aren't as important are the Dvor and the Franklin, but still worth going after. But one thing I've learned in this game is players want to know what has value to me right now. And right now, what has value to you is the Independent Archives. And it's a great tool to use to follow, yes, as that blueprint, Where do I need to go? Well, what does this tell you is currently valuable? And that is the archive. Botany Bay, made easier to upgrade, made easier to use, and gives you a mining bonus for everything. Same thing with the Vidar. Made it easier to do, quicker to upgrade, and giving you a damage to everything for non-Armada hostiles. This is what you use to kind of, new player, figure it out. This is what you need. Hopefully this helps. So if you have specific questions, though, I'm more than happy to help out. And as always, you can reach out to me on Twitter, Discord, well, Twitter's now X, all the different places. My favorite is still this baby, but that doesn't mean others don't have value. But if you are having trouble, need help with these loops or how to acquire them, hit me up. Most of these can be found in event stores, Cosmic Cleanup, etc., because they did expansions on that. And let me know if you need any help. As always, live long and plunder. Stay safe with the Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Happy to help out the new players whenever we can. And we are out.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.